You know, part of really getting to where you want to go requires you to really figure out how you're going to handle your day and handle your tasks. And so what I want to talk to you about today is essentially looking at your list of things to do and helping you sort out using two different methods how you might want to prioritize them and get at your particular day, especially if sometimes all fields you've got situations where there's ugly. So we're going to talk about that. Well, let's get into it. Hey, yo, and what's up, tribe? I got a great video for you today just to talk a little bit about how you can prioritize what you're doing, like I said in the intro. I got two methods that I'm going to talk about. The first method that we're going to use to compare it to is Eat That Frog that you may have heard from Brian Tracy. And the second one is Eisenhower's Principle in terms of how you're prioritizing. There's a lot of similarities between the two of these, but there's some differences, and I want to overlay them on top of each other in a way so that you can really compare them. All right, so I'm going to use a little bit of space in the camera for this, so let me just move over to here. Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that I had this space over here to work with. There's some diagrams that I'm going to be using to help illustrate what each of these two individuals have put out for you. So I'm actually going to start with Eisenhower's Principle first. And Eisenhower's Principle basically looks at your priorities, what you have to do in the day as to whether they're important or not important, and as opposed to if they're urgent or not urgent. And what we can do is we can actually look at this in a 2x2 grid. I guess eventually it's going to happen. I'm a business college professor. We use these things all the time. So let's get a little 2x2 grid up there and start looking at urgent, not urgent, important, and not important. Great. So in this first quadrant of urgent and important, basically do it now. If that's on your task list, you've got to get it done right now.
Just do it.
You may have people waiting for you. You may have deals on the line. You may have just got to get it out. Sometimes you might call that pissing on fires. We've all been there. Got to do it. Okay. The second one is important, but not urgent. And what we're looking at here is basically plan it. Figure out how you can put it into your day to get it done so it doesn't become something that's urgent. All right, so now looking at things that aren't important. So they might be urgent and not important. And you might be asking yourself, how is something urgent but not important? There may be some situations where essentially something needs to happen, but you're like, this isn't important to me. It might be important to someone else. Either way, you want to find someone that can do it for you, and essentially what you want to do is delegate it. And finally, is it not important and not urgent? Then basically drop it. You don't need to do it. Get it off your list. Just, you're done, okay? So really basic, really simple. That's Eisenhower's Principle. The next thing we're going to talk about is Brian Tracy's Eat the Frog. And so we'll still be using some diagrams for this, but essentially the idea of Eat the Frog comes from something that Mark Twain said: if you eat the frog in the morning, then essentially you've gotten rid of the most uncomfortable or disgusting thing that you absolutely have to do. And that's the principle here. And it's slightly different in philosophy, and you're going to see how it might be important, especially if you've got tasks on your list that are urgent, that you don't want to do, but are still important. So Eat the Frog has a methodology that Brian Tracy put out, and it's basically the ABCDE methodology. And so basically you start with these A's, and these are what he would call your frogs. The real distinction that I want to make here is, hey, something could be urgent and super important and it's not a frog. You could really still want to do it. But either way, your A tasks, whenever you put your tasks down in the morning or the night before, are those tasks that you have to get done immediately. They must be done. No choice. Okay. B is things that should be done. So this might be less so the email to a client before a client bails on you, as opposed to that thing that might be hanging over your head that you know you should be doing it, but there's minor consequences for it not getting done. So you've got your should be done. Your C's are things that are essentially nice to have, nice to do. It could be going out with your friends at lunch or a colleague for lunch, but realistically, if they don't happen, no major consequences to putting that off. So A, B, C in terms of how you prioritize most of your tasks that are central to you. Now, what about tasks that aren't central to you? Well, that's where you have the D. The D basically means delegate it, and you may have heard that, you may remember that from what we were talking about with Eisenhowers Principle, and that basically says, is there someone else that can do this for you? And finally, now we've got these E tasks, and E in Tracy's paradigm stands for eliminate, and that's essentially get that task off there. It has no purpose, no prioritization, nothing at all. So Eisenhower's Principle doesn't per se carry a prioritization with it, but you can still absolutely prioritize. And so if we go and pull this grid back up, it's essentially like a reading order when it comes to your priorities. Those urgent and important tasks are your first priority. The not urgent but important tasks are your second priority. The urgent but not important are your delegates, that's your 3, and of course your drop it or your eliminate, that's your last priority. One thing I want to talk about though is this delegate. Delegating is super important. I've mentioned it before. If there's a task that you don't enjoy doing, but you can pay someone else to do it, or you find some other way for someone else to do it, it's more efficient for them to do it, go do it. Perfect example of this. This is something that Tim Ferriss would talk about in the 4-Hour Work Week as well, is cleaning my home. I don't have time, or I feel like I don't have time, I'm sure I can make it if I want to clean my home. But what is more efficient is for me to pay someone much less than what I would charge someone, much less than my billable hours, to come and do the task in half the time that it would take me, and it just feels good. I've spoken about it before, and it's absolutely important. For me, in where I happen to be, I like to assign some of my top level prospecting for talks and whatnot to a student assistant who can get it done probably in the same amount of time that I would, maybe a little bit more time than I would. But what that allows me to do is, instead of spending time Googling and cultivating and whatnot, I can have this student do a lot of those tasks and weed out some stuff based on basic criteria, and then it allows me to really, instead of avoiding that, it saves me time there, and then I can look at the list that she gets me. So, and that's just me. I don't give all of the prospecting to the student. I give most of the prospecting to the student, and then I work there to kind of trim the hedges of whatever gnarled beast that the student has gotten for me. I think another important thing about this is that they both have this element of elimination. Get it off your plate. If it's not important, wait until later. I don't want to say that friends or colleagues and getting lunch is unimportant, but there are times when you've got to make sure that you're getting your stuff done, and your real friends will basically understand when every now and then you're like, hey, this takes precedence. Had to do it today, actually, to make sure that I could get these videos done and get some other stuff done in my life. I had to skip going to the beach with some friends, cultivating those relationships. Thankfully, there'll be more opportunities in the week to be able to sit down with them and have some fun. All right, tribe, so that is a quick video to give you an idea as to how you can work to be a little bit more efficient so that you can get at what you need to get at to have the life that you really want to live. So go out, go make it happen. Practice makes perfect. Remember, you're not going to be able to perfect this every single time, and even the experts, it takes them a little while before they really get this down pat, and I'll bet that on a day-to-day basis they don't prioritize right, or they fail to prioritize. So just practice it and it'll make you just a little bit better. And that being said, hey, if you like this video, click like. If you like what I've been putting out here, hit the subscribe and the notification bell. Tell your friends about it. Share it if you liked it. And in the meantime, as always, I hope you're a little bit better today than you were yesterday, and I'm looking forward to you being just a little bit better tomorrow than you were today. Take care.